So what is it that pushes a crowd to unite in cruelty? And maybe more importantly, what, if anything, can possibly turn that tide? Today, we're going to explore those very questions through the eyes of an absolute master of human psychology, Fyodor Dostoevsky. He gives us these two powerful parallel stories that show us not only our capacity for some real viciousness, but also our profound and honestly pretty surprising capacity for kindness. On one side, we've got Mari, a young woman who's been publicly shamed and completely cast out by her community. And on the other, we have Ilyusha, a little schoolboy who's tormented by his classmates because of his family's dishonor. Now, they're two very different outcasts for sure, but their stories are about to become deeply and transformationally connected. And this really gets us to the heart of the matter for this explainer. How does a mob, totally united in its cruelty, somehow find its way to an act of radical, healing compassion? Well, Dostoevsky gives us a fascinating roadmap. All right, so let's start where their stories do. In a place of just profound suffering, we're going to meet two figures, both of them made into pariahs, outsiders in their own small worlds. So here's a quick look at who we're talking about. Mari is 20 years old, and she's really frail from what they used to call consumption, tuberculosis. Ilyusha is just a kid, only 9, and also pale and sickly. So what's their crime? Well, for Mari, it's being a so-called fallen woman. For Ilyusha, it's way simpler. He's the son of a man who was publicly humiliated. In both cases, their communities have already passed their sentence. Now, let's take a closer look at these transgressions that unleashed all this fury and see just how vicious a community's response can actually be. Mari's story, it's just heartbreaking. She's seduced and then abandoned by a traveling salesman. When she finally makes her way back home, sick, dressed in rags, after walking for a whole week, the very first person to condemn her is her own mother. Instead of comfort, she gets a public accusation. And the cruelty just snowballs from there. The entire village joins in, treating her like some abhorrent creature. It gets so bad that even the priest at her own mother's funeral points her out to the whole congregation and publicly shames her. I mean, there is literally no escape. Now, Ilyusha's story is a little different, because the shame wasn't his to begin with. His father was dragged out of a tavern by his beard, which was mockingly called a bath sponge, by Alyosha's brother. Ilyusha saw the whole thing, and now that awful taunt follows him right into the schoolyard. It's this constant, cruel reminder of his family's dishonor. And you've got to understand, this isn't just name-calling. This is a full-on social assault. For both Mari and Ilyusha, we're talking constant mockery, total isolation, and even physical attacks. Stones, mud, they're denied work, food, basic human dignity by the entire community, adults and children alike. But right when things seem absolutely hopeless, two figures step in. These are our catalysts, the narrator in Mari's story and Alyosha in Ilyusha's. In their response, well, it marks the turning point. And here is where everything changes. Where the mob saw sin and weakness, our catalysts saw misfortune and suffering. Their response wasn't contempt, it was pity, a simple act that completely shatters the whole cycle of cruelty. So how did they do it? It wasn't some single grand gesture. It was a patient process. First, they simply witnessed the injustice. They saw what was happening and refused to look away. Then, instead of joining that course of judgment, they offered a moment of pity, an act of radical empathy. And the third, absolutely crucial step was to engage directly with the tormentors, especially the children, not to condemn them, but to talk to them. And finally, they persisted. This was not a one-time fix. It took patience, day after day. And it's this engagement with the kids that is truly transformative. It's like Dostoevsky is suggesting that while the adults are kind of set in their ways, the children, who, remember, were the most vicious tormentors, are also the most capable of change. This journey from cruelty to love is just remarkable. At first, when the narrator shows Mari a little kindness, the kids actually attack him. They throw stones at him, but he doesn't retaliate. He just keeps talking to them, day after day, patiently explaining her story. And slowly, so slowly, the shift begins. First comes empathy, with these little secret gifts of food. And this just blossoms into this incredible outpouring of love. The very same children who threw stones are now whispering, "We love you, Mari." In Ilyusha's story, this whole transformation is basically personified in one kid, Kolya. He's the proud leader of the schoolboys.
Initially, he justifies his cruelty with this cold, intellectual logic, claiming he's just trying to make a man out of Ilyusha. But his own heart shifts, and he moves from that detached cruelty to this determined, active compassion, finding a lost dog and training it as this powerful gift of reconciliation. And this is the real game changer. The source of Ilyusha's deepest, most private guilt was his belief that he had killed a dog named Shushka by feeding it bread with a pin hidden inside. Kolya finds that dog, proves it's alive, and in that single act, he lifts that terrible, crushing burden of guilt right off of Ilyusha's shoulders. So what's the result of all this? Well, in the final days of both Mari and Ilyusha, who are both dying from their illnesses, we see the powerful, moving conclusion to this whole transformation. In her final days, Mari is no longer an outcast. No, she's surrounded by the love of the children. They sneak out to bring her little gifts and just offer her comfort. The narrator observes that this unexpected love is what allows her to die happy, feeling forgiven, and finally at peace. And get this, the compassion doesn't end with her death. The children who once threw mud at her now cover her coffin in flowers and lovingly tend to her grave. It's a complete 180-degree lasting transformation. And similarly, Ilyusha, on his deathbed, is surrounded by his former tormentors, who are now his friends. Their return has healed his family's shame, and in his final moments, he offers this unbelievably poignant request to his father, a moment of just pure love and reconciliation. So, what's Dostoevsky really telling us here? I think it's that salvation isn't some grand divine miracle. It's earthly. It's found in the small, persistent, humble acts of human kindness that can slowly, patiently break through even the hardest stone of cruelty. And that leaves us with one final thought to ponder. Through these stories, Dostoevsky seems to be asking a really profound question. Maybe the ultimate test of our own humanity, of our own soul, isn't how we treat the powerful or the righteous, but how we treat the outcast, the broken, and the shamed.